My mom spent a shit ton in legal fees to get all this stuff back, too. God forbid it goes on his record. She's like, you don't want to be the boy who cried wolf, do you? I'm like, no, Mom. I don't. And by the way, the boy who cried wolf got eaten by the fucking wolf.
When was the last time you were afraid? Really afraid?
What the fuck is happening to me? What the fuck is happening to me?
All right, everybody, welcome to the Heavy Leather Horror Show podcast, your weekly guide to all things horror from the heart of which city? Salem, Massachusetts. I realize on a weekly basis that the Boston accent does show up when I say horror.
Horror.
I just say horror. It's horror. I'm your old pal Ken, a.k.a. Rock and Roll Rider Sleaze Grinder. And there she is, everybody. It's Salem's greatest huntress. It's Kelly Kapow.
Hey.
Scares people.
Let's fucking party.
She scares people, but she also likes to have fun. That's what I like about her.
Party.
Yeah.
Also, our coolest creep, Kate Douglas, is here.
I just sound. That's so exciting.
She's a creep, but she's cool. Also, there he is, everybody. Rui, the 16-year-old intern.
Hello.
I was a teenage werewolf. Fantastic. Bewildering.
So first of all, number one, let's all congratulate Rui because now he is Rui, the 16-year-old intern.
Yeah.
You did it!
Way to go. You made it another year.
Yes!
Let's hope there'll be more.
I mean,
16, man.
good for you, buddy. It's very easy to stay alive when you're a teenager, but you still did it.
Telling you to do dumb stuff.
That's true.
Like throw a brick over onto over an overpass.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
Today's
god.
movie so demonstrates.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. We're a TV show primarily, but we are broadcasting from my basement until we can get back to our haunted studio across from Halloween Alley. Go to our YouTube page to see the show, youtube.com/Heavy Leather Horror Show. By the way, guys, I got a green screen, so we can always do the show in my backyard now if we have to.
Ooh.
Nice.
I also want to remind you that we are part of the Campaneros Radio Network. GoGoCampaneros.com is our site. You can check out Movie Melt, Get Soft with Dr. Snuggles, Songs on Trial, and now also the Heavy Leather Horror Show podcast, all at Campaneros. GoGoCampaneros. This week and every week, we will have a little horror news. We'll talk about some horror movies we've seen lately, and we'll be reviewing a film together. This week, it's M.O.M, Mothers of Monsters, everybody. So that's going to be something. So let's get everything going. Let's see. The bats are in the belfry, and the monsters are down in the dungeon, and the wolves are howling. And that can only mean one thing. It's time to start the Heavy Leather Horror Show podcast. All right, thank you.
Man, the wolves are opinionated, I gotta say.
It's funny is that we have one of those Ring doorbells. It's like a camera, and there's a whole. When you have one, it also connects to a community forum where people report any weird things that they've seen, or they show you weird videos from their rings. And every single day, people report that they've seen coyotes on their streets. Coyotes live around here, man. I mean, that's just it. Stop reporting coyotes.
Report ghosts. Have you seen a ghost on there?
No ghost yet.
I watch a lot of weird videos on the internet, and there is a video that keeps being suggested to me by YouTube that's just like the scariest footage ever caught on Ring doorbells. You must watch. And I was like, oh man, one of these days at night I'm gonna watch that and then never be okay again.
I've seen a couple of those. It's always been like some random like high girl running down the street and like banging on someone's door and trying to get into their house or something.
There was
There's a lot of those out there.
Or 3 raccoons in a trench coat.
Yeah.
begging for food.
When we first got the Ring, there was a duo of 2 middle-aged women that were going around stealing people's planters from their porches.
What the fuck? Those are expensive.
So there were a lot there's a lot of footage of them.
Crimes are mostly heinous.
They had a whole ring going, man, where they would just show up at your door in the middle of the night and steal your planters.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's the worst.
You should set some sort of ghost trap out there on your porch.
The fact that nobody is catching ghosts, everything, there's so much surveillance these days and nobody's catching ghosts, which would suggest to me that it's quite possible that ghosts don't exist.
Maybe they're shy and they know they're being recorded.
They're camera shy.
Yeah.
Before we get to everything, everybody, Kate is what you would call a true crime enthusiast. And
true.
She knows a lot about murder. So what we're going to do now, I don't have my intro, but anyway, it's time for the Murder Minute. Bong.
Thank you guys for making the sound effect. It's great. All right. I'm going to tell you guys about one of the most famous unsolved cases in Finnish history.
In Finnish?
Are you ready?
As in the country of Finland. The
country of Finland, which means that I normally like to say the names of the victims in all crimes so that they get their due. But I cannot pronounce these names, so I'm so sorry to these people. So come with me back to Saturday, June 4th, 1960.
Okay.
There were a group of teenagers, 2 15-year-old girls and their 18-year-old boyfriends. They decided they were going to go on a little camping trip and set up a tent on the shore of Lake Bodom in Finland. But things went wrong. Sometime in the wee hours of the morning, an unknown attacker came into their tent and stabbed all of them and bludgeoned all of them.
Kate?
The 2 girls...
Kate?
Yes?
Can we just pause for 1 second?
Yeah.
Okay. I found your intro. It doesn't feel like...
Do we want to go back?
No, you can continue.
I thought we did a good job.
That was good. All right. So the 2 girls died in the tent, and one of the boyfriends died. The other one had crawled out of the tent. So there's a lot of theories about who did this. No one has ever been charged with this crime. The guy who did not die, his name is Niels Wilhelm Gustafsson, had the most pronounceable name out of everyone.
Wow, that's cool.
Story.
That is a cool name.
He said that at some point in the morning, all he remembers is an attacker in a blur of red and black coming at them, and he doesn't remember anything else. He had a serious concussion, fractures to his jaw and facial bones, as well as myriad bruises to the face. The only other evidence was at around 6 a.m. there were a group of young boys bird watching nearby, and they said they saw the tent collapse and they saw a blonde man walking away from the tent. That's the only evidence they've ever found.
Wow.
And then at 11 a.m. later in the day, a carpenter was nearby and came across the collapsed tent and called the police, and they came and found the bodies and the one victim who was still alive. And oddly, this happened in 1960, remember. In 2004, Gustafsson was actually arrested, and they just said it was on suspicion related to the murder. But he was acquitted a year later, and there's never been any other criminal stuff involved with it.
Kate, do you have a theory?
Holy shit. Do I have a theory?
Yeah, you have a theory?
I don't want to say it's probably Gustafsson, but
it's probably
Gustafsson. Yeah,
it's for sure Gustafsson.
Yeah.
Kate's Murder Minute, everybody. You did it.
You said the girls were 15?
The girls were 15 and their boyfriends were 18.
Yeah.
Does that change it for you at all, Roy?
It's a little, I don't know what it's like over in Finland, but it's, you know,
It's
a little
weird.
sus here.
That's only like a 3-year age gap, but the differences between a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old are just so
yeah.
drastic.
Yeah.
Truly.
I'm gonna go ahead and say he did it.
And I mean, I don't like. There have been so many cases where people have injured themselves just to make it look like an attacker.
Oh yeah, that's what you do.
Like, did the crime.
Yeah, for sure. That's how you do it.
But what about the bird watching losers?
Just because they were bird watching doesn't mean they're losers, Rui.
In fact, there has been it's like a whole new thing. Bird watching has become huge during this pandemic because people don't have as many things to do. So if you've ever thought about it, now is the time to start because it's really turning into a big community.
Because the birds are taking the land back.
Yeah.
They're fucking everywhere now.
They're so scary.
You're just seeing a lot of different ones than you did before. It's still not that exciting, but still, you know.
I wish there were less geese.
Watching.
It would be nice if there were less geese, for sure. I agree with you,
like
buddy.
the Canadians.
Couple of things before
I don't like you. You don't like me.
Couple of things before we get to the movies, everybody. I found out yesterday about a website that I want to tell you guys about called Dead Man's Switch. It's deadmanswitch.com. And it's a service that will send out emails after you are dead. So maybe you want to confess to a crime, or maybe you just want to tell someone that you loved them one last time. Who knows? But this service will do it for you. You write out the emails, fill out who they're going to, and then every 6 months the site will send you an email asking you how you're doing. And if you don't answer within 60 days, they'll assume you're dead, and then they'll send out the emails. How great is that?
I love that.
Isn't
That's
that good?
amazing.
Dead Man's Switch. So think about it today, about emails you want to send out. Especially if you have
I
enemies.
can really spice some things up.
Yeah. You could really mess up some people's lives.
Exactly.
I'm very lazy. I'm going to freak out a bunch of people just for me being lazy and not checking my emails.
Right, it's true. You know,
maybe I will hide treasure.
Well, there are people out there who are harboring secrets that they may keep to their grave. But now, after you're dead, who cares? You know, let it all out. That's pretty exciting.
I know of a similar service. I mean, it doesn't do this, but it is for when you have died. Well, it's for when you have been raptured.
Nice.
My old roommate had a really cool mug and sweatshirt, and it said like after the rapture pet care, and it had like all of these like people being raptured and then their little pets left behind. It was such a sad image. And I was like, that's so cool. Where'd you get this? And she was like, it's a real service. You basically, people who are sinners and think that they will not be raptured sign up so that they will be an animal will be placed with them when the rapture comes. And then people who think that they will be raptured get to sign up and list their animal on there so someone will take care of them.
That's fine.
Because animal souls can't be raptured, apparently.
What? I thought all dogs go to heaven.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not.
Really?
So all these born-again Christians, their pets are not also by proxy born-again Christians? Now they're just heathens? I don't know.
I think they just don't think that they have souls.
Oh.
Which
can you imagine actually believing that?
My cat has a soul.
Okay.
Definitely.
I can't imagine believing any of it. But if the whole rapture concept, like all the Christians are gone, that sounds great. I mean, any day that's going to happen is going to be a good day for sure. So
I'm ready for it.
Me too. Been waiting for years. Every once in a while there's there'd be they keep moving the goalpost. There's always like the rapture is coming and February 21st, 1999, and then for a long time they would have like flyers up all over town in Cambridge, I remember, that this was going to happen, and I was like, holy smokes, I can't wait. And then February 21st came, and then no rapture. And then they do it again, a few years later. March 7th, 2002, Rapture's coming. All right, fantastic. It's finally here. And then it wouldn't happen. Keep moving the goalposts.
How do they excuse that? Like, what are they like when you're like, hey, man, what happened?
So
are they just
got it wrong.
oops?
Yeah, no, I studied American religious history for my minor in college. And so we dealt a lot with people who said the world was going to end and then it didn't. And how do you what do they say? And a lot of times it's like, we did a miscalculation. They're pulling all of these random numbers from the Bible to like explain their date.
There's a cult that thinks the world's going to end, I think, September 5th of this year.
Of this year.
So, and it sure feels like it. So,
well, it seems like it's in many ways it has already ended. So it's probably true in that there's definitely a new world that we're in already. So, I think September is late.
They finally got it.
Yeah, I think they ended around March or something. Hey, here's an interesting story. A Bolivian orchestra locked down in a haunted castle surrounded by wolves. That's something that's happening
That's
right
fucking
now.
Cool.
Let's see.
Are they okay?
I don't really have any orchestra music, but I have a little. There you go. That's kind of, and I definitely have some wolves, so we can create the atmosphere of what's happening over there. There we go. That's what it sounds like. Anyway, let's talk about it. Being quarantined at home is tough, but being locked down in a foreign country is worse, especially when you find yourself in a haunted castle surrounded by packs of wolves, such is the case for a Bolivian orchestra who traveled to Germany just before the borders were closed in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. A Bolivian pan flute orchestra has been stuck in quarantine on the grounds of a grand 15th century palace outside of Berlin for over 2 months. Over 20 members of the orchestra Experimental de Instrumentos Nativos have been stuck on the grounds and buildings of the Rheinsberg Palace, a castle complete with a moat, by the way, which has housed generations of German royals. According to the BBC, Rheinsberg Palace is said to be haunted by the ghost of Frederick the Great. If you're not afraid of the supernatural, perhaps the 23 packs of wolves who surround the property might also give you pause. While the orchestra members are faring well, it can't be denied that the situation sounds like the tagline to a horror movie. So there they are, the pan flute orchestra stuck in the castle with the ghost.
Sounds pretty exciting.
With the ghost inside and the wolves howling outside.
It's not dull. At least they're not having a dull experience.
No, it's very exciting. Yeah. They can talk about it forever. Remember that?
How's it going, Frederick?
Yeah, and also, it's a big castle. One ghost, how much problem is he going to cause?
Yeah.
Also in animal-related news, Hitler's alligator that survived the Battle of Berlin dies in Moscow. An 84-year-old alligator. Did you know they live that long? I had no idea.
They do. They live very long. I'm from Florida. I know these things.
Because I guess lizards do live pretty long lives. Especially if there's nothing that's going to eat you. Nobody's going to eat an alligator, so I guess they can hang around for a long time. Anyway, an 84-year-old alligator rumored to have once belonged to the German Nazi leader Adolf Hitler died in Russia. The Moscow Zoo announced last Saturday. Saturn, the alligator, escaped from a Berlin zoo amid Allied bombing on November 23, 1943. The 3.5-meter animal appears to have survived on his own for the remainder of the war until British soldiers discovered him in 1946. No one knows exactly where and how Saturn survived in the intervening years, but he was then transported to a Moscow zoo where he has lived peacefully ever since, despite being a Nazi alligator. Zookeepers say he died of old age. R.I.P. Saturn, Hitler's alligator.
So he was hiding out?
That's insane.
I mean, he was hiding out for a while, and then they found him and put him in a zoo.
Imagine just, being some poor Allied soldier. You're already stressed out enough. You're in Berlin, you're in the midst of gunfights fighting Nazis, and then you round a corner and you see an alligator.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's kind of nice that they didn't just kill the alligator. They were like, it's not the alligator's fault.
Yeah.
It is surprising that they just took it in.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around this. So weird.
He might have had a nice personality. We don't know.
Such a headline.
Kate, did you, when you were in Florida, did you actually deal with any alligators in any?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have a very good fear of them.
Yeah.
I have seen many an alligator in my time. I have a cruel father, and when I was a kid, I was really afraid of the alligators and the snakes when we would go out in like canoes and stuff. And my dad used to tell me that alligators were really good climbers. And so when we would go like in a canopied area of trees, he would be like, watch out, the alligators might jump down and get you. And I was like, oh no.
But
Everything was danger.
But now I'm wondering.
That's so scary.
But now I'm wondering. I mean, obviously he's just trying to scare you, but alligators can't climb trees, though, right, Kate?
No,
Okay.
they cannot.
Excellent.
Hope to God not.
Do you know what to do if you get into a fight with an alligator?
Die, I think. Yeah.
Kiss it.
The
Give it a
only
little kiss.
thing, the only thing you can do. I mean, you're gonna lose. They're incredible predators, but alligators, when they're flipped on their back, they have a blood vessel that goes straight to their brain. That when they're flipped on their back, immediately cuts off blood supply, and they pass out when they're on their back. So the only way to defend yourself against an alligator is try to get it on its back.
Oh yeah, just flip a fucking
Yeah,
1,000-pound
exactly.
alligator.
Yeah.
So easy.
That seems like a very rational fear of alligators.
Yeah.
Like,
So I'm so afraid.
Did they teach you that in grade school? Was that part of alligator training and growing up in Florida?
They're just always known this. Yeah,
Wrestling.
we used to talk about alligators all the time.
It's like
But they
wrestling
do-
101.
Yeah, they live so long. There's the Wakulla Springs Lodge at Wakulla Springs, right outside of where I'm from in North Florida, and which is where they filmed the underwater scenes for Creature from the Black Lagoon. Great horror film.
Wow, that's awesome.
But in the lodge, because it's been there forever, there is a embalmed, very, very large alligator called Old Joe. And Old Joe, it says on there, never hurt a woman or child. And he was murdered. And there's like still a bounty out for whoever can give you information on who murdered Old Joe. He was like over 100 years old.
Wow.
Damn.
So did he kill men then? If he didn't
No,
kill
he
any
didn't
women or
kill-
children?
He didn't kill anyone.
Man.
It has the old language on it where it says like never molested a soul or something. And I always
Jesus.
love that old talk.
Some Swedish biologist, Susanna Massa, has invented a new, clean, environmentally friendly alternative to cremation called Promethean. It's not legal yet, but they're working on it. I like this idea. Here's what happens: they put you in a casket like normal, but then they toss it into a big bucket of liquid nitrogen with a temperature of minus 196 degrees, and then they just shatter your corpse into a million pieces. That's the idea.
What's the point of buying the casket then? Can they just put your fucking body in there?
And then thank you. And then they
Does
just
some guy have to hammer it?
and then they just bury it. In a matter of months, the materials break down and become nutritious fertilizer. Should be available sometime soon. Yeah, I'm not sure why they put you in a casket first. I think just for ritual sake. So your family doesn't see you just get tossed into a bucket of nitrogen. I think lowering
Tales
it
from the Crypt.
I think lowering it into the bucket in a casket is a little nicer. But
Yeah, it is. But
then they just hit it with a hammer and then smasheroo.
Imagine
So is
being
it-
the guy who has to beat it with a hammer.
I like it.
that's a good job.
Yeah, that would be-
Takes a lot of aggression out.
If you're the Promethean guy and you just get to shatter corpses all day, that'd be awesome.
I take
Throwing
that job.
plates or something. Yeah, you can really get out all your aggression.
Yeah. So that might be, what I'm saying is that in the future you will have many more choices of what to do with your body than you do now. Because they can take it, like I said, you turn into fertilizer pretty quickly with that one. So they only have to bury you a foot below as opposed to 6. And then you can just, feed a tree.
Oh,
HBO Max is a new streaming service that you can get from Hulu. A lot of people talking about it. HBO Max. Have you heard about the HBO Max?
I've heard whispers.
I just signed up for Blue Apron because I am having a very hard time getting groceries during this pandemic.
Sure.
Because I don't have a car and I don't live close to a grocery store. And I was like, I'll sign up for Blue Apron. At least it'll get me fresh food. But the recipes this week are all like oh, we're partnering with HBO Max, so here's all the things you could watch on HBO Max while you eat your meal. And I'm just like, no, thank you.
That is really stretching.
Yeah, right?
They were like themed there, and it's like, it really is a stretch. Like, I made pork lo mein, and it was like, you could eat this Friday night pork lo mein while you watch like Friday Night Lights or like watch the old game. Like, or not. No, I don't want any of this.
That is some twisty marketing.
God.
That's the best they could do.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Ridiculous. Anyway, they have a lot of 80s horror staples, which is good because you're certainly not getting that from Netflix. HBO Max is currently streaming every Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And I mention this because Kelly is a big fan. And what I was hoping right now is to see if Kelly could give us the full titles for all of them. Obviously, the original is just A Nightmare on Elm Street. But the rest of them all have subtitles after the colon. So I'm wondering if you know what they are. A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, colon, Kelly.
Shit, I don't remember the second one, but then you have
wait. Hold on. I'll give you a number. I'll give you 2, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
No, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is Freddy's Revenge.
Freddy's Revenge.
Right.
Okay.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, colon.
Dream Warriors.
Boom, you did it.
Okay.
Next one. You got that one. What's the next one?
Dream Masters.
Yes.
Dream Master.
You got it.
Wow.
That's 4. Nightmare on Elm Street 5, colon.
Creative.
Dream Child.
Yes. This is incredible. What's the next one?
6.
Yeah.
Freddy's Dead.
Yes.
Wow.
Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Yes. What's the one after
Freddy
that?
versus Jason.
Yeah. Let's hear it for her. She did it, everybody. That's incredible.
That sounds like way too nice.
You are the Nightmare on Elm Street master.
Is that Keneally?
I love it.
Did I tell you guys this, that I printed out so many pictures when I was like 12 years old and we first got a printer at the house. You know, when it took like fucking 10 years to print one picture out. I used like all of our ink because I printed so many clip art pieces from Nightmare on Elm Street, and then I made collages and I taped them all around the top border to my bedroom.
Wow.
Oh my
So it was
God.
just like-
That's incredible.
I was a big fan.
Commitment.
Did you see the documentary on Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Scream Queen, Kelly Capel?
No, I didn't, but I think they were doing that at the Salem Horror Fest last year.
Yeah, and I actually think it might be on Shudder now. But anyway,
I should watch it.
It's about how so Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was the it turns out it was the gay Nightmare on Elm Street. Like the dude was in it that was in it was gay, and then there was like a heavy gay theme to the movie. But I don't remember any of that when I watched it in like whatever 1985 or whatever it was. Like I don't remember it being gay. And then when you watch the movie, you go, this is the gayest movie ever. It's the same thing with
so homoerotic.
Oh my God!
I need to watch it now. I'm excited.
It's the same thing with
abs.
It's the same thing with Lost Boys. Lost Boys is super gay, but it never seemed that way when I was watching it as a kid. And then you look back, and then what's his name has a Rob Lowe poster in his bedroom, and
Corey Haim's character.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and it's just like everything, and it's all hunky dudes, and it's like this is the gayest movie ever. But it just didn't strike you that way at the time.
I think everything was pretty gay in the 80s.
Yeah, maybe everything was so gay that we just didn't even notice. It was all in the same. It was all in the mix. But anyway, that's pretty incredible. How do you feel about the did you see the reboot, the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot?
Oh yeah, it was a piece of shit.
Okay, all right. I don't know.
It was all CGI.
Yeah.
Like even like the blood spatter and stuff, his makeup, a lot of it was CGI'd. And then I thought, I was like, okay, maybe I will enjoy this because they're kind of doing a little spin on it. They're like, okay, what if Freddy Krueger did not molest or hurt those children? What if he was innocent? What if, he was attacked by all these parents,
right,
and they created this monster because he was wrongfully accused? And then they were like, oh, just kidding. And you were like, are you fucking kidding? You should have just went with that, man.
Right. Well, I think they're planning on rebooting it again since the last one didn't work out. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Just keep throwing money at it till it makes you some.
Yeah. I've only seen the first one because I'm so afraid of the idea of like not being able to fall asleep and you
should check them out again because you know what, they start off pretty serious. Like the first one is terrifying, but then the second one is just like a big gay fest, which is fun.
Yeah.
And then after that, they start to get a little funnier.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, it's a little less serious, but then the kills are all really good, and I just love it so much.
By the way, did you know that there's a social network just for horror fans? Were any of you guys aware of that?
Is there a dating website for just horror fans?
It just celebrated its first year. I hadn't heard of it until a week ago, though. It's called Slasher. I downloaded it the other day. It's actually pretty fun. It's like Facebook, except it's black and red, and everybody on there are just suggesting horror films to each other.
That's cool.
And also being really nice to each other, which is nice.
I like that.
Never expected.
I mean, it'll probably, it's pretty new, so it'll probably get ruined at some point. But at this point, you just go in there, you sign up, people, friend you, and you guys, and everybody talks about what horror movies they like and suggests stuff for each other. It's really nice.
Do you guys remember the website? Well, Rui, I don't think you'll remember this, but do you guys remember the vampirefreaks.com?
I remember the name. I don't really remember what happened at vampirefreaks.com. Refresh us.
It's just people that liked vampires chatting with one another.
Okay. All right.
I think they finally got shut down after all these years.
They got shut down. What did they do?
Where are they gonna go? Who are they gonna talk to?
Yeah.
It's an entire population just scattered to the wind.
Right.
They need to relocate.
Oh, there's some tumblers still lurking around out there that they can join.
Sure.
Here's a story that I want to tell you about. A pair hired for a man's sexual fantasy show up at the wrong house with machetes. I just want you to think about what that might be like for these people. So, two men snuck into a bedroom with machetes after being hired to carry out a stranger's sexual fantasy of being tied up in his underwear and stroked with a broom, only to discover that they had got the wrong address. The pair from Sydney, Australia made their apologies and left the startled victim's bedside as soon as they realized their mistake. So they were polite about it. But they were arrested soon after, but found not guilty of intimidation with a dangerous weapon. Conceding the facts of the case are unusual, Judge Sean Grant set out his reasons for their not guilty verdict, saying the evidence did not suggest the men's actions were intentional. They carried the machetes either as a prop or something to use in that fantasy. He said the fantasy was unscripted and there was discretion as to how it could be carried out. They just went to the wrong house. According to
real machetes?
Yes, with real machetes. According to court documents, a man living in western north-south whatever in Australia near Griffith wanted a broom handle to be rubbed around his underwear. So that's what is confusing to me. Like the guy's sexual fantasy is that he wanted somebody to break into his house and to rub his genitals with a broom handle. But for some reason, these maniacs showed up with machetes, which is a whole different thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. I might want my money back if that's...
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a bonus or something.
Yeah. But imagine...
People are just,
At least this guy is expecting somebody to break into... He's paying for somebody to break into his house. The guy, his next-door neighbor is just lying there in bed, and these maniacs show up with machetes.
Over that terror.
Yeah.
There's gotta be a way that they can work this out beforehand. Like maybe knock and say, "Hey, I'm the people that are going to be breaking in a couple of seconds."
I mean, that would certainly ruin the sexual fantasy if they knock first. But
there should be something that's just like, I will have a very specific color of porch light so that you know that you got to the right house. Like anything that the person at home could have done. Just be like,
give the right address.
That's risky.
It's just, I mean, they might, hey, maybe they didn't have the number on the door. I don't know.
Does it say where he found these people? Like,
I don't think we want to know.
Like Craigslist ad?
Oh, it's got to be Craigslist.
They must have a Craigslist there.
It's got to be.
What if it was just a guy that hated his neighbors and like sent them to the wrong house on purpose?
That could be it.
Yeah.
I remember when we were doing the topless dance party, I decided I wanted this is right around the time that Rui showed up. I decided I wanted a dancing gorilla for the show, and so we got the gorilla costume, but we didn't have anybody to be the dancing gorilla, and so I was like, all right, I'll just why don't I just put a Craigslist ad asking if somebody wants to be a dancing gorilla on the Heavy Leather Topless Dance Party. And then I started getting all these like, fuck yeah, I want to do it. And it was all like 60-year-old dudes, you know. And then I was like, maybe I'll just stay internal on this one. So...
Yeah, that was a good call. As a crew member, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it was like
sexual.
Yeah, every single person that replied was, and it was in the picture. It was that I put up. It was me with a it was from, I guess, from one of our Halloween shows. So it was me with a pumpkin full of candy with Pearl on one side and Elsa on the other. So I had the two burlesque girls next to me, and I got a thing of candy, and I'm like, hey, you want to come on my show and be a gorilla? And all these fucking maniacs were like, yeah, I do, yeah. So.
You think you were going to get like a wholesome person from that?
Exactly. I don't know what I was thinking.
You're getting Joe the Craigslist.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly what you expect.
I don't know.
Really, that had to be a really specific fantasy for those men out there. They're furries and they get to see these beautiful women and they're like, wow, I hit the jackpot.
Yeah, they've been waiting.
And on live television.
Sure, you didn't post it on Backpage on accident?
They'd been waiting for years for this. So I just put the other intern in the thing, and he was fine. I put Rui in it once, but Rui's way too skinny to be in a gorilla outfit.
I think that was my first episode, actually.
Yeah, I was like, let's throw him in there, and it was like, this is way too skinny or gorilla. It's not going to work. Raging Hollywood Hills party amid coronavirus ends when man shoots himself in the groin.
What?
That's a great way to end the party, honestly.
I love these headlines.
Larger gatherings are still prohibited under strict coronavirus stay-at-home orders, but that didn't stop a raging house party Saturday night in the Hollywood Hills that ended, police say, when a man accidentally shot himself in the groin. Officers received a complaint of a loud party at 1410 Miller Drive at 11 p.m. When they responded, they found that more than 100 people were gathered at a short-term rental property that appeared to have been reserved for the occasion. By the way, that's the other thing. Maybe after this is all this is over, we really have to start thinking about these Airbnbs, because basically they rented one in order to have a coronavirus party in the Hollywood Hills.
They're getting a lot of backlash now. They have to change their policy.
It's really crazy, right? So
won't even get me started.
The officers heard a single gunshot and called for backup units, figuring that chaos has erupted at the party. And when they got there, they found out that it was a guy that just shot himself right in the balls.
What a fucking idiot! That's what he deserves, that bastard.
I mean, you hear about this so often. What are men doing?
I don't know.
Is it and also never put your gun in your waistband. You have to know better. Don't put your gun in your waistband. I'm not saying that we know that that's how that happened, but I have
probably how it happened.
He put his gun in his waistband.
I'm sure he was showing off. There's also there's a right-wing meme going around of gun owners who are taking pictures of themselves aiming their gun into their crotch. It's some sort of protest. It's some sort of protest thing. And then for sure, that is going to happen again because they're going to shoot themselves in the balls.
Ow! But it's you don't even feel that bad because they're idiots. They're just, I don't know what they expect to happen.
No, not at all.
I feel a little more joyous all of a sudden.
A guy went to the hospital. His injuries were not life-threatening, so good for that guy.
Well, they were certainly threatening his livelihood, his lifestyle.
Threatening the life of future children of his. But that's probably a good thing if this guy's dumb enough to go to a party during a pandemic and then shoot himself in the ball. We don't want him procreating.
Yeah,
well, he just lost his two brains, so...
Good one, buddy. Good one. In needless remake news, Blumhouse just finished shooting a remake of The Craft. So, in case you wanted
No!
that. Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
That is so terrible.
That film was kind of perfect the way it was. The way it was. I don't know if we really needed a remake. Also, Ryan Gosling is set to star in the Universal reboot of The Wolfman. So you got that to look forward to.
Interesting. He doesn't look very wolfy.
He doesn't. He doesn't seem wolfy to me, but maybe he can wolf up good. I don't know.
Wolf up.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some movies we've seen lately. By the way, I review the movies I watch over on Letterboxd, so go to letterboxd.com/sleazegrinder. If you want to follow me, let's find out what people have seen. Hey, Kate, have you seen any horror movies of note this week that you might want to tell people about?
I really feel like I watched 2, but I can only remember one that I watched.
Okay,
so and it was a rewatch for me. First time for my partner. I was thinking a lot about this movie and I wanted him to see it. I watched The Strangers from 2008.
Ooh.
This is the home invasion movie? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think I saw it in the theater at the time.
Tyler, Scott Speedman.
Right.
Basically, I saw this movie when it came out, and I was just so deeply, deeply scared. And I was like, maybe I'll rewatch it now and see how it is. I've been thinking about wanting to rewatch it, and I showed it to him. Basically, it's a home invasion movie, like Ken said. It's inspired by the Tate murders by the Manson family, and then also by a series of break-ins that happened to the writer-director Brian Bertino in his neighborhood when he was a kid. And, the thing that really got me too is it starts with the whole, this is based on true events. And, all that means is, 2 people really were tortured and murdered in their home. But we don't know what happened. And this, makes up an idea of what happened that night.
Right.
So, if you have any fear of, people in mass or people breaking into your home and being defenseless, this is the one for you. It scared me so much, even watching it again now. And I'm really bummed because the reviews of it, audience scores and critic scores on Rotten Tomatoes, are terrible. And I feel like it's an actually really good psychological thriller. Nothing scares me more than people showing up and getting into my house.
Yeah, for sure. I remember seeing it in the theater, and it was marred somewhat by being a largely teenage audience. And so there was a lot of teenage girls overreacting to jump scares, which is really annoying.
There's some good jump scares. I saw my partner jump for the maybe first time in a horror film watching this, and I was so excited.
Yeah, it is.
That movie scares the shit out of me.
It is a scary movie.
There's a lot of just really slow burn scenes too, where you can see the actor in the foreground, and then if you look closely in the background, the fucking mask people are just slowly come into frame, and it's oh my god.
They do a lot of that creepy crawling shit too, where they come in and they fuck with them before they even make their presence known.
Yeah.
Which was a huge Manson thing to do.
Yeah.
Move their shit around, and so they're already completely psychologically fucked up before
they even see the person. Yeah, and when they're home having a disagreement because the man played by Scott Speedman has proposed to Liv Tyler's character at a wedding. When this all starts, it's such a bad idea anyway. That's a horror story by itself. Don't propose to people at someone else's wedding. But so they're home and they're fighting, and then someone knocks on the door, and it's clear that she's unscrewed the porch light, so you can't really see her, and she just says "Is Tamra home?" Super creepy.
Yeah. And
the shitty guy that I dated in high school, I saw this movie and I was so scared. And as I've said in this episode, I'm from North Florida. It's a lot of trees, wooded stuff, much like this movie because it's set in rural South Carolina. But he was leaving my house one night, and I had walked him. We had a long driveway, and I had walked him to his car and said goodnight. And as I was turning around, walking back in the dark to my front door, he just goes, "Hey, is Tamra home?" And I've like never been so mad at someone for saying just so few words to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
The Strangers, everybody.
Head.
Definitely worth a rewatch if you haven't seen it in a while. Hey, Rui, what about you, pal?
Well, other than the news, the horror stories I've been watching, I rewatched The Dentist.
Ooh, okay.
Which it's a little personal considering I had around 4 years of orthodontic
That's
hell.
true. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Talking braces, palatal expanders, retainers. I had 6 teeth pulled.
Yeah, so this one really struck close to home for you.
Yeah, and I'm about to get my wisdom teeth out whenever this whole mess is over. So it's and it's like all the mouth gore in that is gratuitous and horrifying, especially like I don't know if any of you have ever been like in the dentist seat and they say whoops.
No, that's not a good sign.
That happened to me one time.
Oh no!
Yeah.
So who is the dentist in the movie The Dentist?
I don't know the actor's name. Let me look it up.
Okay. Give us the premise. Give us the basic premise. He's just a psychotic dentist.
Yeah, well, basically, I think dude's already messed up beforehand.
Yeah.
It's Corbin Burnson.
Oh, Corbin. Yeah, right.
The dentist.
Yeah, okay.
And basically, like, he finds out his wife is cheating on him, but he's like, I don't know, he's being kind of passive-aggressive about it, like he knows, but he doesn't want her to know he knows. So he just starts, like, taking his rage and frustration out on his patients.
Yeah.
And then, like, eventually out on his wife and her feller.
God, that would be so easy to do if you were a dentist, because hurting people is that's your trade anyway.
Yeah,
a really sadistic career,
and charging the money for it.
I definitely have had some, maybe perhaps not sadistic, but certainly rough dentists in the past.
Oh yeah,
who didn't seem to really care how much they were hurting you.
My dentist is a lady, and she's really gentle and nice.
That's really. I just went to the dentist this year, or I guess last year, for the first time in like 8 years.
Yeah, wow.
Because I'm so afraid of, much like Rui, I had years and years of orthodontic work and terrible dentist stuff, and I've always been terrified of the dentist, which is why I put on the movie The Dentist once and turned it off within under 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was afraid of the dentist for many years, but I go every 3 months now. It's fine. The difference is now is that they have a numbing agent that they put on before they give you the Novocaine, so nothing really hurts anymore. It's fine.
Yeah,
I don't respond to local anesthetic.
Really?
Oh.
It's made getting teeth pulled a real nightmare.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
And you only find out when they do it and they put a ton of Novocaine in your mouth and you still feel everything and you have to be like, no, still feel everything. And then they go, well, we got to do it.
Yeah.
We just got to do it.
So they just tie you down. they just strap her into the thing and whatever happens. That's the way they used to do it in the cowboy days.
Spoon? I mean, yeah.
They can't give you a wooden spoon because it's your mouth. One time, though, they did leave laughing gas on me the entire time that I was having a procedure so that it would help. And that was great. That was the best.
That's fun. That is fun. All right, Rui, so you saw The Dentist. Is that it? Is that what you saw this week?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, awesome. How about you, Kelly? What have you seen this week?
I got a couple that I want to talk about.
Okay.
The first one is The Siren, which is a 2019 horror fantasy movie. Not to be confused with Siren that came out in 2016.
Okay.
They sound very similar. But anyways, so it's called The Siren, but it's also called the Rusalka. And the Rusalka is Eastern European lore, and it's a siren. And it's basically, a woman that's lived as an ordinary woman, and then she becomes lovesick and drowns. And then she's basically like a cursed living ghost trapped in the body of water, which is usually a lake where she died, and she's forced to kill anyone who comes close to her.
Sure.
So this movie This movie only has a few characters in it, and it basically follows the main character. His name is Al. He's searching for the lake creature that murdered his husband, which was cool because, I mean, it's usually not the gay character is usually not the lead character.
Sure, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it follows him, and he's kind of looking for his revenge on the creature that murdered his husband. And then you have another guy in it who is a mute god boy that like shows up to rent one of the lake houses. So he falls in love with this siren, and then the other guy is trying to kill the siren. So it's like this crazy thing that's going on. But I would say the first 40 minutes are kind of boring to get through.
Right.
But then after that, it picks up, and I kind of liked it.
If we just fast forward to after the first 40 minutes, will we have missed anything?
Maybe you miss a little build-up of the romance between the siren and the god boy.
All right, but we could get to the 40 minutes and then have a good time.
Yeah, you could have an okay time.
Okay time. Okay. All right. Well, if I'm looking for an okay time, I know where to go.
So if you're looking for an okay time, watch the siren 40 minutes in.
All right.
So yeah, I watched that, and then I watched a really fun movie. I don't know if you've heard of this, Ken. Bad Milo.
Yeah, I think I've seen it. Something is got a monster in his butt or something, right?
Yes. Okay. So it's a 2013 horror comedy. You can watch it on Tubi right now, and it's written and directed by Jacob Vaughn. Stars Ken Marino, Jillian Jacobs, and Peter Stormare, who I love that guy. It follows a man named Duncan who lives with his wife Sarah, and he's like super high stressed. And he works in like a insurance office job or whatever, and he suffers from like IBS. He goes to a doctor and finds out that he has like a polyp inside of his lower cavity area.
Sure.
And it turns out that the polyp is this crazy ass creature that is like a manifestation of all of his anxieties and stresses. And he goes to see a therapist who is played by Peter Stormare, and the therapist, of course, all of a sudden has this book that he takes out, and he knows all the lore about these ass creatures. And he basically tells Duncan that he has to bond with this creature to stop it. The creature starts to kill people that stress Duncan out. So it attacks like the root of all of his problems, the people in his life. And the therapist basically tells him, you have to bond with it. So then he names the ass demon creature monster Milo.
Right.
And it's all about getting to the root of his problems. It's really funny.
Does it use him as the method of killing,
or does it escape from his ass?
Is it just the butt like comes at people?
Yeah.
Or does it come out?
No. He comes out of his ass. He births this ass monster several times a day, and then the ass monster goes back inside of.
Yikes! That's worse than I imagined.
From whence it came.
Right.
It is the size, roughly, of a 2-year-old
toddler.
child.
Yeah.
It's that big.
It's fucking huge, and
what
it's
a hassle.
really cute though. It kind of looks like a penis creature that's with big alien eyes. And sharp teeth. I don't know how to explain it. It looks like something that could be in Harry Potter. I don't know.
I just have to watch this now. That's really something. Wow.
I laughed during the whole thing, and it had some really good gore, really good kill scenes. It was just a really fun movie to watch. I would definitely watch this again.
There you go, everybody. Bad Milo. A couple of recommendations.
It was recommended by Travis and Dr. Vitka, who we've had on the show before.
It was rectum mended from.
Mended.
Oh, what a good one.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Pretty good. All right, there you go. I have a few to tell you about. I'll bang through them. Panic Beats from 1983. Spanish horror legend Paul Naschy tries to drive his wife crazy so that she'll kill herself and that he can get all of her money and then run off with his sexy young cousin. That's his idea. Also, there's a family curse and an ancient homicidal knight running around the castle. It's all on a castle. There's lots of double and triple crossing and lots of like really gross, gory effects. It's really fun. It's really gory, and it also contains my favorite post-murder line ever that I posted on Facebook. The cousin in it kills a guy and says, "We're both evil, but I'm more evil than you, idiot." It's the best. Got him. That is a great line. Panic Beats. It's super super fun. It is, however, Spanish, so you have to read the subtitles. Everybody. I have no problem with subtitles. Many people do. Don't run. Yeah, exactly. Don't Run from 2019. An intriguing premise for sure. So there's a new kid in town, gets bullied. He pouts, screeches at his mom, has a miserable teenage time, in general. But then things get exponentially worse when a monster in his bedroom closet eats his mom, and then his dog, and then his aunt, and then some bloody...
Not the dog.
Yeah, everybody. He eats them all. And then some bloody bandage dude informs him that if he's ever out of his bed after dark, he will also get eaten. So, so that's the premise here, is that when darkness falls, this kid has to be in his bed or he gets eaten by the monster in the closet. During the day, people are trying to figure out where his mom is, and where his aunt is, so like social services are coming by, and he's got to try to explain to them why nobody's around and why he has to get to bed as soon as it gets dark. So, and here's what I thought was interesting. The first credit in the opening credits was for the audio engineer, which I thought, well, that's strange, but it becomes clearer later on, because this is basically ASMR horror. So ASMR is the thing where people talk close into the microphone, that whole thing, right?
Of course, yeah.
So that's what is happening in this movie. I'm going to play a little bit of the. I'm going to play a little bit of the monster so you can hear what I'm talking about. This is the monster coming out of the closet.
Wow.
Hello, Peter. You're awake. I can hear you breathing. Come on down and say hi. Your mom's down here.
That's the monster in the closet.
That's really fucking scary.
Yeah. We're all wearing headphones too, so that was a real experience.
Yeah, so that's
ASMR doesn't really work for me.
So the sound design in that movie is really intense, man.
Why is whispering so scary?
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely a bizarre movie, and it does kind of a head spinning 180 at the end. It's the kind of ending that makes a lot of people want to throw their remotes at the television. But for this one, it kind of worked. So it's worth a watch, and certainly like I said, the sound design was really interesting. So that was Don't Run. Another one I want to tell you, another new movie is from 2019. It's called The Other Lamb. I watched this one because I heard a lot of people talking about it, and it sounded intriguing. It might be what you would call elevated horror these days, which, it's just sort of, it's a horror that's sort of more intellectual, I guess. But anyway, hunky guy has a sex cult in the forest. Some of them are his wives. Some of them are his daughters. You go, what happens to the boys? You figure out later on what happens to the boys. Trouble arises when, amongst other things, the favored daughter comes of age. And then, I'm sure you guys know how sex cults in the forest work. So one day he decides, well, I'm just going to turn the daughters into the wives now. What is he going to do with the wives? He's going to do what a cult leader would do with the wives. So it's pretty intense. It's got certainly midsummery vibes to it for sure. The cinematography in this film is really incredible. I mean, I'm not even sure where they shot it. Somewhere in the U.S. But the landscapes are just amazing. The rest of the film is not as amazing as the cinematography, but that part is definitely something. And I've always been interested in movies and books and whatever about cults. I like to think about cults.
I like to think about
quite a bit of incest in this one.
Oh, for sure.
There's a lot of that in books.
And in some of them, you can see the sort of incesty stuff in some of the younger people in the cult, but it was done really well, for sure. I think I could. I don't have the energy. I think that I am capable of starting a sex cult, but I don't have the I think I have enough charisma to start one, but I don't have the energy to contain one.
It's a lot of work.
It seems like a lot of work.
It's so much work because you have to have these really intimate relationships with every single member of your cult in order to keep them in the cult. That's problem number one. And problem number two is that humans don't keep secrets. So it's really hard to keep a cult together because someone's going to blab about what's going on and then it all falls apart.
Do you guys know that historical figure Sojourner Truth was in a very strange Second Great Awakening sex cult?
No, but can I tell you something? Sojourner Truth is quite a name. I like it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell us about it.
There was a sex cult during the there were a lot of sex cults during the Second Great Awakening. This one was called the Kingdom of Matthias, and she was part of the community. And, the guy had a lot of charisma and brought in a lot of people, and they all lived together outside of New York. And then it all went amiss when he decided that God told him he needed to take the other men's wives as his wives. And people had some issues with that. But we had to read this book in one of my American religious history classes all about this. And then you get to the end of the fucking book, and in the epilogue, it's like, by the way, the person throughout this entire book who was like part of this and helped run the community, we used her original name, but she changed her name after this, and it's fucking Sojourner Truth. And I remember coming to class the next day and just being like, what did you have us read?
Right.
What is this?
It's amazing.
That's wild.
There was really the 60s and 70s were the apex of the cult movements. There were just so many of them. And they were all the same thing. It was just like one guy that just wanted to have sex with a bunch of women, right? And then he comes up with some sort of thing that seems to resonate with a bunch of people. It's just, it's just amazing. Like, every cult is a sex cult. If you're in a cult right now, you're in a sex cult. I just want you to know that.
Just so you all know out there.
For all our cult watchers.
I guess except for the Trump cult. I don't know if there's a whole lot of sex in the Trump cult, but there might be. I don't know.
I
don't think there
Christian,
is.
probably.
Some really weird stuff. The women, Republican women who love Trump, are super into the Bigfoot fetish. It's this whole thing about how Bigfoot represents the ideal man because he's so strong and masculine. And they're writing novels. I will send you guys links. They're writing novels and doing research about how all of these Republican women want to be basically taken advantage.
Yeah,
by Bigfoot.
Right. I mean,
I
didn't
go hang out naked in the woods.
I didn't know
conservative Bigfoot erotica.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about the Bigfoot angle, but I know that he has for people that are into the whole Trump thing, that he has like this strongman vibe that they really admire, which is just so bizarre because just objectively you just look at the guy. This is not a strong man. I mean, what are you guys talking about?
He looks like you could blow him over.
Right. Yeah. It's so strange.
Wow.
Could finish him off with a rusty nail.
The other Lamb, everybody, 2019. Another one that I want to tell you about, also from 2019. It's called Feedback. It's a British film. Superstar radio show host of the, kind of rile them up, wake up sheeple variety, is invaded mid-show by some figures from his past who force him to admit various crimes and low-life behaviors that he had done before. And then things escalate out of control pretty quickly, and then the heads start getting smashed in with sledgehammers and stuff like that.
Ooh.
radio has not been this exciting for years as it was in this movie. It was it's really pretty good feedback. And the other one that I wanted to tell you about that I just watched last night, which wasn't great, but I think was interesting enough to mention. It was called Arctic, Artik, also from 2019. So there's this comic book obsessed serial killer with a barn full of filthy urchins who he uses as farmhands. And then this straight edge dude from a local counseling center befriends one of the kids, and then he ends up chained up in the guy's barn. And then a battle of wits and also bloody hammers ensues. If you think about any of it for more than 20 seconds, it seems completely absurd, but it's done well enough and played straight enough. There you go. All right, I'll buy into it.
Nice.
It's obviously a low budget film, but they maximize their potential with just because it's like most of it is taking place in a barn, and it's like really stylish and grimy, and it's definitely worth a look. It's called Arctic from 2019. And there you go. There's some suggestions for us this week, some recommendations. And by the way, in June there's a ton of great and interesting sounding horror films coming out streaming. So we'll be checking out and talking about some of those in the weeks to come. But right now it's time for the best kill of the week.
That is gross.
I'll tell you the worst one, by the way. After last week's show, it turns out when I was talking about the locker room death, I thought it was Carrie 2, but it was actually Prom Night 2, which obviously they're very similarly themed. Anyway, after that debacle, I ended up watching. Turns out I have a DVD of a double feature of Prom Night 3 and 4.
Wow.
And I watched those, and they're terrible movies. and perhaps the worst, and the third one is really jokey. I guess the second one was kind of jokey too, but the third one is really jokey. And there is a impalement by ice cream cones in that one.
That's amazing.
Whoa.
How
the hell does that work?
She stabs a guy with 2 ice cream cones.
Really strong ice cream cones.
Really strong ice cream cones. That was the worst. Best kill of the week for me this week is from Panic Beach that I was talking about, the Spanish film. It's the same woman, the one that called the guy an idiot when she killed him. She's having a conversation with a woman, and then casually pulls out a hatchet and then chops her in the midsection, and the woman's guts just fall right out, and then she hits the floor.
Oh, nice.
It's fantastic. It was really good. What made it so good is how casual it was. It was like she just decided in that second, I'm just going to chop her right in the guts with this hatchet. And then that's what she did. It was the best kill of the week.
Spewed out into the floor.
Yeah, I'm sure you have something, Rui, to talk about with the dentist for best kill of the week.
Yeah, this one isn't a kill, but like, I don't know. It honestly like messed me up more than any of the kills, because the guy gets his wife, and then he just like starts ripping out her teeth and like breaking her jaw, and then she survives that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but now she's horribly disfigured because of this, and I just like, Jesus Christ, you know?
Yeah, it's really something to think about.
Yeah.
Kate, how about you? Best kill of the week?
Mine's a mini spoiler for The Strangers, but I feel like it's 2020, so most people have seen it. But there's, like I said, they're in this argument because he proposed to her at a wedding, and he calls his friend and is like, hey, I'm going to let her stay here. Can you come pick me up tomorrow? Leaving a voicemail. And I guess the friend gets the voicemail. Mike, played by everybody's favorite Glenn Howerton, who's Dennis from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Yeah. He shows up in the midst of all this chaos where they're being, home invaded and tortured. And he comes to get him and help, but they have just found a rifle or shotgun that they're going to use to defend themselves, and thinking he is the intruder, end up shooting him in the face. And it's
Ooh.
really something to see the mangled face, but also just like, man, is it a sad kill because they just shot their friend who came to help them.
Right.
Wow.
The
yeah,
old
that was
switcheroo.
brutal.
Intense. All right. How about you, Kelly?
Mine is from Bad Milo for sure. There's a scene where one of the people in the main character's life that he's stressed about is this fertility doctor that his mom introduces him to at some dinner because she's kind of pressuring him to have kids. So the fertility doctor gets it by Milo, the ass demon monster. Yep. Basically rips his dick off. Just bites his dick, and you see it. You see him with his little teeth actually pulling on the penis until it rips off.
Sure.
Blood everywhere.
Incredible.
Just a mess.
Just a mess. Terrible. There you go, everybody. There's the best kills of the week. Wow, there's some terrible death, mutilation, penises ripped off, shotguns to the face. Yes. Oh, we love it all. It's time, everybody, to talk about this week's group watch, which is it's called M.O.M. By the way, not to be confused with Tommy Lee's old new metal band, Methods of Mayhem. That's a different M.O.M. This is M.O.M. Mothers of Monsters.
They could have just called it that. They didn't need to do the abbreviation.
They really didn't. I mean, I get it, but it's, although, I would be less inclined to just see a movie called Mom, right? So I think that,
Yeah.
I would be more inclined to see a movie called Mothers of Monsters. So they were trying to, I guess, play it both ways. It's a new film. It's from 2020, directed by Tushia Lyman, known mostly for paranormal-based reality TV shows on cable, like Ghosts of Morgan City and Ghosts of Shepherdstown. I haven't seen any of them. I'm sure they're great. The film stars Bailey Edwards as Jacob and Melinda Page Hamilton as Abby, his mother, and they are really essentially the only two significant characters in the film. I'll give you the synopsis. Care of IMDb. A distraught mother suspects her teenage son is plotting a school shooting, but when he slips through the cracks of the system, she is forced to take matters into her own hands. After installing an elaborate spy camera system in their home, Abby captures a series of disturbing videos that confirm her worst fears. Torn between a mother's unconditional love and a mother's acute intuition, Abby caters her videos to all the other Mothers of Monsters online. Abby's plan backfires when Jacob uses a dark family secret against her, launching both mother and son on a terrifying and ultimately deadly game of cat and mouse. And that's the basic setup of Mothers of Monsters.
Oof.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about this movie. So it really made me feel sympathetic to all the parents of unruly teenagers, because like even in the beginning, before things started to escalate, when he's just being just a bratty teenager, you go how in the world do people deal with that kind of stuff? Because it was like, he would not do whatever he was supposed to do, and then his mom would take away his PlayStation until he agreed to pay her back or whatever, and then he'd just start tearing up the house and throwing chairs at her. And that's not even that outside of the norm of raising a teenager. It's just fucking scary.
It is. I don't know any of my friends who throw chairs at their parents. I certainly never have.
It's definitely a mentally ill child, a teenager,
Yeah.
The actor that played him did a phenomenal job, because I fucking hated him.
Yeah, I wanted to punch him.
It was so... This movie was a really uncomfortable watch. I watched it this morning, so it's still very fresh in my mind.
Same.
And it was so fucking uncomfortable. Like, I felt my whole body was just clenched the entire time I was watching this movie. And I kept thinking, what's real? I mean, is it her? Is it him? Like, are they both fucked up? it's just such a wild ride. I thought
he was really. I mean, he was very much he was like a troubled teenager, obviously, but he felt very real. He didn't feel like a movie character. He just felt like a troubled kid, and and I recognized that, there was a lot of, like, even when I was growing up, there was a lot of teenage kids that were, really edgy, and we would do stuff like he did, like his thing where, Rui mentioned it in the beginning, where he was with another kid and they were at an overpass and he threw a brick over onto oncoming traffic, which obviously can kill people. But I've known kids that were like that when I was a teenager. So it felt very real. And go ahead, Kate.
I mean, so watching the trailer for this, I knew this was going to be a real hard watch for me. This could have been like footage of my family, like just throw in a sister and it's my mom and brother. So it was like,
really
my brother's probably worse. It was so hard to watch.
Yeah, it was interesting because I grew up in a really dysfunctional household too, and there was a ton of domestic violence, and it wasn't aimed at me. It was just my parents. My parents just battered each other for 40 years, but so and I was just always sort of ducking and trying to stay out of the way. But that sort of experiences where people are, people who ostensibly love each other and who are related to each other are hurting each other and like throwing shit at each other and threatening violence on each other. That really resonated. I mean, that felt really real. Both of these actors just did an incredible job.
They did an incredible job, yeah.
And you could kind of understand where the mom was coming from. And she was like, I am afraid, because the premise here is that she is afraid that this kid is going to become a school shooter or something, or do something like that. So she just wants proof to take to the cops to try. And when the film starts, they had already moved once because of this sort of behavior, and she had gotten him sent off to a reform school or whatever, and he just got spun through the system and he was back. So she was like, okay, I have to have some sort of proof of what this kid is up to. So that's when she started wiring up the house to try to have some visual proof of what was going on. And for me, the most intense part of this whole thing is the scene in which she starts buying all this sort of spy equipment, and of course the kids are always smarter than the parents anyway. So she buys a digital frame that has a little tiny camera in it, and you see it on the thing.
It's so obvious.
The camera.
It's so obvious.
Yeah, the camera's a little dot in it. And so she sets it up in the living room, and the kid comes home and he sees the new digital the digital frame, and he's watching the pictures in the digital frame, and you're just waiting for that moment when he sees the camera,
Yeah.
And it's just
to go off.
And it's so stressful because you go, the fucking kid is going to see the camera and then he's going to go ballistic. And basically, like like it said in the synopsis, there's this whole cat and mouse thing, but there's some underlying dark family secret that we don't know about. And the mother, who is in a very stressful situation anyway, seems to be unraveling, and you start to wonder whether, like, who is the insane one in this family, because the son would sometimes show moments of restraint and moments of affection to his mother.
Yeah.
And he would also accuse his mother of being an alcoholic. And then there's a scene where she had obviously drunk herself into a stupor, and then he put a blanket on her as she slept on the couch, So they played it really close to the vest, to not really knowing, who's the one with the problem here,
It's so scary, because then anytime they mention, him being like a psychopath, you did catch those glimpses of like him being like loving and sweet, like even with her hands.
Yeah.
Like they mentioned that real quickly, how he basically helped her with her eczema on her hands. And like, it's just like, it shows you like this kid's like obviously not a psychopath. He just
But there
probably
is
had a really
also-
fucked up family.
Right.
There's the idea at the end that comes out, though, that he was putting something into her cream or into her gloves to make
Right.
their hands worse.
Exactly.
Oh, I thought-
Yeah, that was.
Remember
I
at the
thought
end
he
when
was-
she's in the closet and she's like, "My hands are getting better. What were you putting?" Like she's been
Oh my
alone and in
god,
the
I
closet.
took that the wrong way. I thought he was. Oh, that little fuck.
Yeah.
Also, honestly, like to me, it was pretty black and white. Like the kid is maybe not a psychopath, but he's definitely something.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's just because I go to public school in America, and there's always that little thought at the back of your head that makes you pretty alert and
Yeah.
like reading into little things too much about people, but it's certainly I think something my generation, all of us kind of have.
But
I think they did. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, that was one of the I thought really sort of brilliant things about this film is because it really does make you wonder who is doing what to whom, because it does.
Yeah.
It's because in the beginning, there was a scene in the beginning where she was going over his medication, and then
taking
his medication, which is like, what? Why in the world are you doing that?
Really got me. Yeah.
And then it turns out that he was aware of this and he was messing with her medication the whole time too. So it's like these two maniacs.
So toxic.
I mean,
Yeah.
just like in this downward spiraling relationship. Intense, man.
And you can also tell that her mother, his grandma, who he calls Nana, is some sort of emotionally abusive against her just by the way that their conversations go. Like you get glimpses on their video chats that like something is amiss there with that relationship. And the person who made this, weird credentials for, ghost television shows, but they must have either done a lot of research or had some sort of experience with someone like this, because I thought that, having lived this, it was just so true to how relationships and people like this work, especially like the part at the beginning where she's talking about the fake Jacob, where he acts one way in the car with mom, and then as soon as he gets to school, he's this different person. And that's what makes her having any say and being like, no, he's actually doing horrible things and no one believes her. Like, that's what makes it so difficult. And it's very real.
But you know what?
You just thought he's making her seem even crazier. There's
Right.
so much
Yeah.
manipulation and gaslighting going on. And
But
it was such an uncomfortable watch.
one of the interesting things too is that when she was like, "Oh well, that's the fake Jacob," but the fake Jacob was also an asshole. I mean, like there wasn't a sweet guy really in him at all, except for like little glimpses here and there. But for the most part, he was just kind of a dick in general,
When he talked to his Nana, like you can hear, like he's so sickly sweet with her, but you can hear that it's both like a performance to make the mom angry and to like get sympathy so that someone else is on his side.
Right. Incredible. It's just it's definitely an incredibly unique experience, and it's definitely a horror film. So let's see what we thought. Rui, at the end of the day, yes or no? What do you think of Mothers of Monsters?
I'd recommend it. It's pretty it's definitely a stressful watch, and as being a teenager, I guess I had a unique perspective on it, so I think anybody could enjoy it. Or maybe not enjoy it, but
Yeah. Is it
well done? Yeah.
Is it just telling a story, or are there any morals or elemental truths that we can get out of it? Really, do you think?
I mean, there was some. I mean, some of it's kind of like mixed message. Like it kind of feels at some points like it's promoting the style of parenting where it's like watching your child constantly, surveilling them, and then there's other times where it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that.
Rui, as a 16-year-old, are you being surveilled right now? You think about your parents? Do they have the house wired up?
Possibly. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
That's definitely to get. It's scary. Like at a job I had once that I will not disclose, we had an Amazon account, and a lot of times someone who worked there would buy their personal Amazon stuff via the work Amazon without realizing it. And one time it was just a bunch of like home surveillance systems where like there were cameras in like light switches where it just looked like one of the screws. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Terrifying.
It
and
is.
you know what? I would be so fucking angry if I found out that I was being watched like that by my parent. You know, as a teenager, you're coming into yourself and you want privacy. Not saying that he didn't deserve it because he was a fucked up kid.
No,
but can you imagine finding out that literally your entire life you're being like surveillanced?
Yeah, it's not a fun thought, you know.
Yeah.
All right, Kate, what do you think? End of the day, about this movie we saw.
End of the day, yes, I think people should watch it. Big old trigger warning on it, though, but I think it's definitely worth the watch.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The trigger is if you grew up in a household with domestic violence, you know, you're probably going to feel something watching this film for sure. Kelly, how about you?
I recommend it. I think it was so well done. It really was. It definitely shook me though, because I feel very uncomfortable, and I feel like it's going to stay with me for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it will. It will shake you up, and also, you know, the we didn't discuss the ending because it would be a spoiler, but the ending is really it was super surprising, and would really kind of causes you to question everything that went before too. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I think after the show's over, we'll talk for a couple of minutes about what we thought about the ending, because that was definitely a curveball. Anyway, M.O.M. Mothers of Monsters 2020 release date. It's out now. It's on Amazon Prime, right? We all saw it on Prime. So you can see it for free.
I watched it for free on Tubi.
There
you go. Well, if you want to watch it with
but they do have ads,
with commercials, sometimes, you know, everybody grew up watching television with commercials, and there's something relaxing about watching just a movie with commercials, because you know
it broke up the horror, which I didn't want.
You can go to the bathroom. You can go and get a snack. It's nice. I don't mind. Tubi's okay with me. And by the way, if there's a moral to the story, it's this:
being weird and different is not where it's at.
That's exactly right. Don't be different, because it just causes a lot of problems. By the way, Kelly, how Salem was this movie?
Not very Salem.
It was not very Salem. It was just
one.
It was just I'm sure domestic violence happens in Salem, but it's probably pretty rare with all the witches and hexes and whatnot.
Very suburban, you know. And it's like, you notice this kind of stuff almost only happens in suburbs, and I have a theory.
Yeah.
Because I visited some people down the suburbs. There's nothing to do. The kids down there are bored out of their mind, so they're just doing drugs and like doing actually dangerous things. City kids just, you know.
Yeah.
We get up to hoodlum stuff, but nothing that severe.
I lived my whole life in the city, and I always railed against the suburbs, but a lot of people now think that I live in the suburbs. So I really have to eat crow for all those years that I complained about it. Because while I don't consider Salem the suburbs because I'm here.
Yeah.
If I was in Somerville, I would probably consider Salem the suburbs. So, you know.
Not really. I mean, it's a small town, but that's it.
Thank you, buddy.
It's pretty quaint.
It's very quaint, yeah.
Anyway, it's time. It's the end of the show. We got to get to the plugs. People got to plug their stuff. Well, Kate does. Kate has to plug her stuff. All right, Kate, you have knives to sell. So let's do it.
Okay, I do have a shop, but I do want to take a minute, instead of plugging the shop this week, to say, instead of buying stuff from me or someone else, send your money to the National Bail Fund Network or the Minnesota Freedom Fund, because they need it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, beautiful. That's very nice of you.
Catch a protest when you can.
Rui would suggest that you go to a protest, but obviously be safe about it.
Be safe. Be very, very cautious and safe about it.
Mask
in
up.
every sense of the word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, Kelly, do you have anything that you wanna plug? Anything coming up that you know about?
Not
talk about?
Not particularly, but as you know, the month of June is the LGBTQ month,
Sure.
so I'm sure there will be a lot of gay spooky shit happening online, and I'll let you know if I hear anything.
Look for gay spooky shit, and if anybody knows about gay spooky shit, it's Kelly Kapow.
Nice.
YouTube.com/Heavy Leather Horror Show, Facebook.com/Heavy Leather Horror Show. That's for our TV shows and for Witch Watch and everything else, and Go Campaneros for the podcast. And that's it for us this week. Until next week, everybody, stay spooky.
Woo!
We gotta get out of here.